Fox's Hannity, President Trump agrees.
President Trump in the Oval Office aiming his anger at DOJ prosecutors.
They're scum, and I say it a lot. They're scum. They're human scum. This should never have happened in this country.
The decision from the DOJ came days after prosecutors turned over documents to Flynn that his lawyers said was evidence that the government tried to entrap him.
Fox's John Decker, the Justice Department's former lead prosecutor in the case, also withdrew from it on Thursday. He had previously told the court the government had no evidence that would clear Flynn. The House Intelligence Committee has released transcripts of secret interviews it conducted about the Russia investigation. In one of them, former Obama administration Director of National Intelligence James Clapper told the panel he never saw any direct empirical evidence the Trump campaign or someone attached to it was plotting or conspiring with the Russians to meddle in the election. Death on the runway at the international airport in Austin, Texas. The crew of a landing Southwest Airlines jet reported seeing someone on the runway. A short time later, a man's body was found there. Who he was, why he was on an active runway, not known yet. A military valet at the White House has tested positive for the coronavirus. The president and the vice president both retested, both still negative. America is listening to Fox News.
Bored at home? Now's the perfect time to get things done. Start that project you've always wanted, or finish one. At East West Rental Center, they know you've reached the end of the internet and need to get outside, and they're here to help. Get the right equipment: water blasters, wood chippers, mini backhoes, carpet cleaners, floor buffers, and much more. They're open Monday to Friday from 7 to 5, Saturday from 8 to noon, and closed on Sunday. Call East West Rental Center, 646-1463, or visit them in Upper Dumont.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Brothers but branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
The woman who accuses former Vice President Joe Biden of sexual misconduct decades ago, continuing her pressure.
The former Senate staffer accusing Democratic presumptive presidential nominee Joe Biden of sexual assault, Tara Reade, has given an interview to former Fox and NBC personality Megyn Kelly. That interview posted on Kelly's social media pages, with Reade telling Kelly she has a message for Biden.
Please step forward and be held accountable. You should not be running on character for the President of the United States.
Reade says she wants Biden to drop out of the race. Biden denies the assault claim, and his campaign sent out a statement Thursday saying these allegations are false and that the material that's been presented to back them up under scrutiny keeps proving their falsity. Jill Nato, Fox News.
The Supreme Court has thrown out the convictions of two former aides to former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, accused of blocking traffic on a key artery as political payback to the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey. The justices ruling they did not commit a crime. Former Governor Christie reacting on Fox's The Ingram Angle.
It is political partisanship and political and personal vindictiveness, which is what brought them to bring this case.
The U.S. Air Force has ramped up bomber flights in some key hotspots around the world.
At the same time, the U.S. Navy's Blue Angels were flying over Dallas, Houston, and New Orleans this week. 7,500 miles away, the Air Force was doing a little flyover of its own in the East China Sea, sending a message to Beijing. 4 supersonic B-1 bombers from Dyess Air Force Base in Texas recently arrived on the U.S. territory of Guam in the Western Pacific. Earlier this week, a pair of B-1s from South Dakota flew over 20 hours nonstop and back over the Baltics on Russia's doorstep. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Subway is still serving the subs you love. Delicious subs made fresh and easy to get for takeout. And now with their family takeout special, get a free footlong when you buy 2. Visit any of their convenient locations today. Subway, make it what you want. Horizon Properties can empathize with individual property owners during this trying time. The last thing you should worry about is collecting rent or sending a repairman to your property. With their web-hosted property management system, Horizon can reach out to tenants, vendors, and owners alike and maintain the current prohibition requirements. Let Horizon Properties take care of it all. Help flatten the curve by remaining safe at home. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792 or visit horizonpropertiesguam.com. Horizon Properties, always there for you.
Cocoa Coffee Company mugs are now here. Show pride for your island as you enjoy your delicious Circle K coffee. Each generously sized 16-ounce mug is etched with Guam-inspired images like Chief Gadao, Serena, Two Lovers, and many more. The Cocoa Coffee Company mug collection is available for a limited time only, so don't miss out. Get yours today and collect them all. Exclusively available at Circle K locations. A portion of the proceeds go toward the Cocoa Bird Recovery Program.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years. Portions of the Tall Tales show with Bob Klitzkie is also brought to you by Mescla. Mescla, check out Mescla, of course, for Mother's Day this Sunday, May 10th, 2020, with Mescla's takeout services. Enjoy some of Mescla's signature party trays and pastries on this special day. Call them at 479-2652 or 479-2653 for more information. Pre-order by Saturday, May 9th. Terms and conditions may apply.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
Real Joe Cruz, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
That's how it's done, sir.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that, sir. Every single day, 365 days a year.
We can't say it enough because it really emphasizes our dedication here on the Tall Tales to the Bill of Rights, individual freedom, the Constitution, the rule of law, and all of these things that we hold sacred right here on Tall Tales. And if you are in tune with us, then you've come to the right place, and you're welcome to join our international radio listening audience. If you can't agree with the things that I just expressed, then you still come to the right place because it's not too late to get yourself straightened out and on the right track, which is what we do every day from 1600 to 1800. We always start the show with a portion called Zemi Ikotni. I have the offerings from the editorial pages of the Post and the Daily News, as is my usual custom. I try to go through them with a critical eye, looking for mistakes in English usage, grammar, factual accuracy, the soundness of the theories advanced. Having done that, I will take my blue pencil and award the coveted blue star to the better of the two editorials, which most of the time is a relatively easy call because the Daily News, instead of printing a real editorial, runs something from USA Today or the Gannett News Service. Today is no exception. Somebody named David Colton is a former executive editor at USA Today, and he is going to write about the media focus on mourning the virus losses. And no surprise here, the thrust of this editorial is to bash Donald Trump. So some things are pretty dependable. That you can pretty much rely on the Daily News not to have a local editorial, to run some boilerplate from USA Today or Gannett News Service, which ordinarily bashes President Donald Trump. Those are kind of givens. And then we have the Post, which is also pretty dependable. They usually run insightful, edgy, tell it like it is editorials that have good punchlines and calls to action. And once again, today is no exception. I have announced on the program before that I never award the Blue Star by default. So the fact that the Daily News doesn't run an editorial doesn't mean that the Post automatically gets the Blue Star. The Post still has to meet Blue Star standards, even in the absence of opposition, in order to get that coveted award. And I've also mentioned before that the coveted award, that careers have been made and broken on the award of that star. And if you happen to be in the right neighborhood in Tamuning or Hagatnya, when I award the Blue Star, you could hear the champagne corks popping out in the parking lot. It's a cause for great celebration. So here's what the Post says today. Now, I have to explain to you the editorial preference that I have when I read something that erroneously uses the phrase COVID-19, even if it's in a newspaper editorial. I correct it to what it should really say, which is Wuhan virus. So one of the things that happens here on Tall Tales, we don't beat around the bush with a lot of politically correct lingo. If, for instance, if I were speaking about the real Joe Cruz, who is about 8 feet away from me on the other side of a double pane of glass, I would refer to the real Joe Cruz as he. Except, tongue-in-cheek, I make fun of the political correct folks by referring to the real Joe Cruz as they. Yeah. So
that double pane glass is for my safety, sir.
Exactly. and you need every inch of it. So you heard that horn honk when I referred to the real Joe Cruz as they. Well, the real Joe Cruz will honk that horn whenever I get involved in sarcasm, tongue-in-cheek humor, the usual Tall Tales way of spinning stories here. And a couple of weeks ago, I had a situation where I did that, and it came back to me that one of the members of the international radio listening audience thought I was serious instead of spoofing. So we added the horn to the routine of the show just in case you don't catch the abundance of sarcasm that occurs on the program here. The real Joe Cruz will toot that horn to alert you. So here's the Post editorial. There are people who suffer in times of war, and there are those who benefit from the money that flows to fight it. Guam's war against the Wuhan virus pandemic, ongoing since March, has led to the loss of 5 of our senior citizens and the infection of 151 people, most of whom have recovered. The health toll on Wuhan virus had been mostly contained on Guam and thankfully has not been as devastating as previously projected by the governor's Physicians Advisory Council, which previously stated that there could be deaths of hundreds or more a few months from now. The council has not stopped making death toll projections because of the uncertainty, and as the number of people who have tested positive for Wuhan virus hasn't been growing exponentially. But there could be a second wave of Wuhan virus cases in September or October. So as a community, we can't let our guard down. For many of our communities battled in the war on Wuhan virus has been primarily economic. The hardships many in our community have faced have to do with the economic downturn. We've also known that the economic hardships have insulated GovGuam personnel, managers, and elected officials from the financial hardships that have unfolded around them. They have not had to sacrifice a paycheck or deal with reduced work hours. Instead, many on the GovGuam payroll have been able to stay at home and still get paid, and have been described by this administration as ready to respond as on-call personnel. There are those who stand in the government front lines, healthcare workers, police officers, firefighters and the like, and they deserve the extra compensation called differential pay for putting their lives on the line as the Wuhan virus pandemic continues to evolve. The frontliners are deserving of that differential pay. Now, I'm going to add editorially here that differential pay is brought about by the governor's executive order that established a 10, 15, or 25% Wuhan virus pay, extra pay. Back to the editorial. These frontliners are deserving of that differential pay. But there are others on the GovGuam payroll who seem to be raking in the extra bucks from differential pay simply because they were allowed, even with six-figure salaries or near six-figure salaries, to do the job that would otherwise be done as effectively by those making half or a third of that much money. For example, certain government of Guam managers have been stationed as hotel quarantine coordinators or watchers. Do you think I should mention Becky and what's the other lady's name?
Alice, sir?
Yeah, should I mention Becky and Alice's name here?
If you'd like, sir, it's fine.
Well, maybe I'll wait till later.
Okay.
Yeah. Certain government of Guam managers have been stationed as hotel quarantine coordinators. Their jobs include answering or approving requests for linen, towels, or toilet paper, even when that job could probably be done as effectively by others in Guam who are used to doing the grunt work and for half or a third of the chosen politically appointed manager's pay. Now, we didn't mention where Becky and Alice are staying. Do you remember where Becky and Alice are staying, Real Joe Cruz?
Somewhere in the Pacific Star, sir?
Yeah, they are. And is it just a regular, ordinary, kind of a Motel 6 type room?
And no, I'm sure it's better than that, sir.
It's a suite.
Yeah.
Room 1909.
Wow.
Does that 19 in front of, at the beginning of the room number tell you something?
Yes, sir.
What does it tell you?
Nothing good, sir.
Nothing good. It's the 19th floor. By the way, Real Joe Cruz, have you made any contact with the 19th floor?
Well, right now, sir, it seems like all connections have gone black.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're still trying. We're working on it. I'm getting concerned.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything from our operatives.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Real Joe Cruz. Back to the editorial here. The chance for making money in a crisis has also presented itself to business owners who get the GovGuam purchase orders to buy laptops, emergency vehicles, plexiglass, and other merchandise being bought in the name of the war on the Wuhan virus, in most cases using federal funds. So yes, there's been suffering in this war, but there have been money-making opportunities for the lucky ones, too. When all the Wuhan virus emergency purchasing dust has settled, we hope there will be enough paper and electronic tails to see who did what. I'm afraid we already know who did what, and even worse, what they didn't do, Real Joe Cruz.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of like Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, sir.
And the dog.
You got to watch everything.
Yeah.
And nothing.
Yeah, and what was it that the dog did?
He didn't bark. It's what he didn't do.
It's what the dog didn't do, yeah. All right. In this continuing war, members of the public are being asked to continue to practice social distancing and wear face masks. The officials who hold watchdog roles, such as the Attorney General, Public Auditor, and the oversight chairpersons in the legislature, can't let their guard down. Their job is to follow the money. Well, I can tell you one thing. We're not going to let our guard down here, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Sir, no, sir.
There you go. Okay, well, pretty easy to award the Blue Star today. Another really good editorial from the Post. I whip out my blue pencil, and the Post gets the Blue Star again. So that takes the Post up to 196 Blue Stars. Daily News 57, and not counting. Okay, after we finish Jemmy Cotney, next on the list is The Card. Are the phones lines open, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir. All lines are open right now.
Yeah, I don't see Martinez.
Martinez.
No Martinez. No another Joe.
Yeah, I'm getting concerned about our people.
Yeah, unusual. Okay, well, here's what I got on the card for today. I've got Joe San Augustine versus the Treasury of Guam. I've got the Guam Federation of Teachers versus the Burn. And I don't mean Bernie Sanders. This was previously on the card as GFT versus Lou. I've got John Thomas Brown versus Lou versus the 19th floor with a little bit of Commissar DeNorcy, forgery, and the First Amendment. I've got Bavacqua and Titano versus the rest of us, which was previously on the card as Lou versus decolonization, which I haven't gotten to yet, but we'll probably get there today. Okay, starting out with Joe San Augustine versus the Treasury. This goes back to, I suppose we ought to call it double pay gate. You know, ever since the Watergate scandal back in the early 70s, every scandal has to be identified with the use of the word gate.
Yes, sir. That was Operation Deep Throat.
Yeah, follow the money.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just yesterday, I think it was, the Supreme Court decided a case dealing with the bridge connecting New Jersey and New York that was shut down because the governor of New Jersey, as it were, because, yeah, I think it was the governor. No, it wasn't the governor of New Jersey. It was somebody else wouldn't endorse Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey, for re-election. And there was an allegation of fraud at the district court level, sustained at the Court of Appeals, went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled against the United States in a case that had become known as Bridgegate. So here we are with double paygate. And today's first item on double paygate comes from the Daily News. I labeled it Joe San Augustine versus the Treasury. The title of the article, DOA to Senator, double pay not applicable during public health emergency. Healthcare workers on the front lines of the Wuhan virus pandemic share their biggest struggles and as you were, that's not part of the story. Here we go. Senator Joe San Augustine on Wednesday said the governor's personnel rules and regulations state employers required to remain on duty for essential services in a state emergency are to be paid double the regular rate or granted compensatory leave credit for hours worked. That's what Joe said on Wednesday. Department of Administration Director, who is really the Director of Administration, Ed Byrne, responded to San Augustine and said the rule doesn't apply to the current public health emergency. San Augustine said he's also waiting for the Attorney General's opinion on the issue. Now, this is a really good dodge for senators. I wrote to the Attorney General to get his opinion. I did something. I really just sat around and had somebody else draft a short letter to the Attorney General, which I signed, and then I went to lunch. And if the Attorney General rules the way you want it to happen, yay, I did it. I got a ruling from the Attorney General. And if it goes the other way, then you can say, oh, that Attorney General doesn't know what he was doing. But I tried. So San Augustine said he's waiting for the Attorney General's opinion. The rules state that when the governor declares a state of emergency, employees on duty providing essential services are to be paid double regular rate or get comp time for hours worked during the period the facility is closed and other employees are on excused leave. Byrne emphasized this section of the rule. It states that the facility is closed and other employees are on excused leave. Byrne told St. Augustine that the facilities in which essential workers are working are not closed, and neither were employees on excused leave. I explained this in some detail a couple days ago, referring to it as something that Yossarian ran into called Catch-22. If you go to work, you would be entitled to the double pay if your agency is closed. But if you're there working, then the agency can't be closed. Catch-22. Going on, that's why the rule for double pay doesn't apply to the current circumstances, according to the Department of Administration. Well, I've looked at it and puzzled through it. I sent off a FOIA to Byrne today asking when employees were removed from administrative leave. Because I understand that in the beginning, right, when the governor declared the emergency, all line government employees were put on administrative leave except the ones that reported to work. So if I can find out when they were taking off administrative leave and put it back on duty, this will add a lot of clarity to this. But I haven't had much luck at all with this administration. This is the least transparent administration that I've ever dealt with since I've been playing with the Freedom of Information Act. Okay, going on with the story. Here's a quote from Senator St. Augustine. It seems to me that the administration has found a way to circumvent the rules that were adopted in support of our hardworking men and women who show up to fight this pandemic. If all other employees are on excused absence with pay and their department or agency facilities are closed for public services, then why aren't essential employees not being paid for double time? That's what St. Augustine said. So I want to make a couple of points here. I see what Burns is saying, and I see how that interpretation could work. I don't see Joe St. Augustine's interpretation. I don't see any interpretation here at all. What I see, just like we were talking yesterday, Real Joe Cruz, the rules were adopted in support of our hardworking men and women. And I remarked yesterday that I don't think there's anyone on this island that has a job that is not hardworking. Because every time a politician talks about our hardworking men and women in the government of Guam and our hardworking people out there in the public sector, the private sector, et cetera. So let's just stop and talk about hardworking for a moment. Isn't that what we expect? Isn't that what, when you hire someone to do something, don't you expect that he'll be a hard worker? When you interview someone for a job, isn't that what you're looking for? The way he answers his questions, the way they answer their questions, the way they handle themselves, aren't you trying to determine whether, is this guy going to be a slacker? Is he going to do the very minimum, just enough to get by? Or is he going to be a hard worker? So being a hard worker shouldn't be exceptional. That should be the norm. And when our government hires people, I expect them to work hard. I don't expect them to come to work at, if the hours are 8 to 5, I don't expect them to come rolling in at 8:45 and go to the kitchen and in the back of their office, cook their breakfast, eat their breakfast, and go out, drink coffee, and read the paper, and finally get around to doing something at about 10:30, and then break for lunch at 11:30 and come back at 1:30.
I need that job, sir.
Yeah. So, you know, that's not the public expectation. The public expectation is that you come to work, you get there on time, and when you get to your job, you work. So to say our hardworking government employees as though you really said something that has meaning doesn't cut it. All right, let's take a short break here.
Hofady, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, making sure you actually own the property you think you just bought.
And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Well, let me jump back into the card here in just a second, but I see out of the corner of my eye that Ishmael has come up with another literary masterpiece. This is what he says. It's a disaster. Troy is always messing up my plans. My H-2Bs resulted in only 2 Mexicans. Now this debacle with Bobauta on the 19th floor. This crap about to give me a cold sore. No, I'm not just a governor who aborts babies. Soon they're going to accuse me of spreading scabies. Damn it, Janella, what have you done to me? You've caused me as much pain as that flame tree. So that's Ishmael's latest poetic offering. So this is Joe San Augustine now, and let me tell you what we've got here. We've got Joe San Augustine. Let me hang on just a second here. Senator Chris Duenas, and then I'll come back to Senator Joe San Augustine. Good afternoon, Chris.
Happy day, Senator Bob, Honorable Marine, your honor on the bench, and my favorite talk show host. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
You know, you triggered me with this discussion on the current card discussion. To call in and just kind of chat with you. You know, it seems, first of all, we've arrived at Friday. So, of course, I talked to Joe Cruz and said, you know, this is that day where we have to pick up our spirits because we're going to have a tough time over the weekend. But you know what he said, Bob, was he said, we'll get through it.
He's tough that way. We endure every weekend.
Even though there will be no tall tales for the next 2 days. Yeah. We'll sit back and just and ponder how wonderful Monday is going to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was triggered because, of course, having you know, you having served, I having served in legislatures where I've always seen a fiscal hawk in the legislature, and I don't see that in this legislature at all, with the exception of maybe our friend Jim Moylan once in a while. Would you agree with that?
I agree. Yeah.
You know, so our good friend Joe is trying to ascertain whether or not the double pay initiative is or double pay you know, is in play here with the current emergency when Rome is burning. You know, I listened to a guy who I know and respect, who has a great deal of understanding on what it means, not only for the private sector revenue, but, you know, what it would mean to government revenue, Michael Israel. And I like his analogy of we're whistling past the cemetery. I watched with some interest the SCS meeting yesterday. There was some back and forth between BBMR and Senator Terlahi. And Bob, I'm just going to go through a couple of things here, and because I want to end at one point to where you think something that's supposed to be triggered would be triggered. We've got our tourism industry basically decimated. We will be lucky probably to have half of our visitors. We would be lucky to achieve probably the arrival of half of our visitors. We won't even be up to 50% by July, August maybe, and then we have a short balance of the year. That's hundreds of thousands of tourists not spending their money in our economy. That's the hotels not operating with employees generating revenue to spend in the private sector, people spending money at the hotels, going to brunches, buying stuff from stores. We've basically shut down our economy effectively for what will turn out to probably be 90 days plus with very little economic activity. I don't understand how there is not way more alarm bells ringing. And I don't understand why, particularly at the legislature with the Office of Finance and Budget, there isn't constant analysis coming out. The only thing that I can surmise is when I look at this federal spending, in order to be a billion-dollar economy that we are, even with the federal spending, there has to be several billions of dollars with activity with regard to economic activity. And even with this 100 million here, 100 million there of federal money coming in, people probably having money in their pockets for the next couple of weeks and nowhere to spend it. I don't see it, Bob. I can't believe there is not more people that are buckling down and more alarmed at what our government revenues are going to look like for the next 2 quarters, with the exception of Mr. Rosanna Jones from the University of Guam.
Correct, Chris, yeah.
What I'm leading to here is 2 things. One is either that 1% is generating a hell of a lot more money than we ever thought, or it's just hold on, baby, and hope for the best, which both scenarios are really kind of destructive, because if that 1% is generating that much revenue to float this government with such a devastating hit, then we definitely need to repeal it, because that's just way too much money being sucked out of the economy to sustain even this devastating of a blow.
I agree.
The other thing is that the former fiscal hawk that really seemed to constantly sound the alarm bells is the current public auditor. And he always mentioned during previous administrations that there needs to be and there's mandated to be a reorg plan and a plan in the event of any catastrophic financial issues under a certain percentage. In your professional opinion, do you think we might meet that this fiscal year?
Yeah, I think we have something like that already, that when anticipated revenues drop below a certain point, the governor, the legislature is supposed to revisit the budget and in effect redo the budget in light of the new revenue projection. But
do you think that they're kind of, do you think they're not kind of like not posting numbers at this point just to try to avoid and hope for the best?
Well, with this legislature, I don't know that it would make any difference. I don't see, as you say, I don't see the fiscal hawk over there. And what I'm leading up to here with Joe San Augustine is that he wants to be the champion of something that is going to cost $38 million, when in effect we don't have 38 cents to spare.
Yeah, that's my view exactly, Bob. That's my view exactly. I've been around enough budgets to know I'm really almost dumbfounded to be in a situation to sit by and watch that there's not more alarm and there's not more discussion on fiscal responsibility and also just, I mean, even around the issue of if you have to have people manning at the Pacific Star, I know that at Guam Housing, they have housing managers and others that are paid 1/4 of the director's salary that could easily do that job and have very little impact to the government coffers. And I know every other agency where agency heads are doing this job, and governor's office personnel. I mean, I would just be looking to save any dime that I could right now if I was either at the legislature pressing the administration or at the administration. This lack of urgency really concerns me.
Me too, Chris. Me too.
I guess the bill, in closing, the bill that the governor signed with alacrity from the last session, and maybe this is part of the hope and prayer, was the removal of the risk requirement for the 2% set aside for rainy day fund this fiscal year. You never know, Bob. That might be the magic bullet.
Could be. It could be, Chris.
We need a fiscal hawk. Let's get a fiscal hawk back in the legislature.
Well, let's start the search for that fiscal hawk right now, so we can prompt them to pick up their papers and run for the legislature.
Sounds good, Bob. Hey, have a great weekend. Hoping the best for us all, and I'll sit back and listen to the balance of the show, which I always enjoy. Take care, my friend.
Okay, Chris. So I'm just going to deviate here for a second. Andrew submitted another literary masterpiece. This is a collaboration of the old bard, Shakespeare, and the poet laureate of Tall Tales. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, fillet of a fenny snake in the cauldron boil and bake. If promised pay you cannot give, with wrath of voters you must live. Peril you face as in Argonne, lest you flee to fair Wuhan. That's from our poet laureate. Okay, back to Joe San Augustine. So it's clear to me what's going on here, Joe. It seems the administration has found a way to circumvent the rules that were adopted in support of our hardworking men and women. Yeah, our hardworking men and women, etc. And I don't know why he sent this off to the Attorney General. He already knows, because he's already told us that that rule means that the folks who stayed home get paid, and those who actually went to the job site get double pay. He knows that. So by being the champion of those who thought they were going to get double pay but aren't, he will be able to get a lot of GovGuam votes come September. Joe San Augustine stuck up for the GovGuam worker. Yeah. In the meantime, 38,000 people who are not GovGuam workers are sitting watching this, and they're saying, I got my hours cut back. I got laid off. I'm just barely making it. I don't see things getting any better for a long time. Financially, my situation is dire, and Joe San Augustine is jumping through hoops to make sure that people get double pay? Give me a break. So, Joe, you're playing with fire right there. You're playing with political fire. Because in her veto message, which I didn't understand, I've been all through the mechanics of this thing, but in their veto message, the governor said that if the double pay were to be paid out along with her executive order incentive pay, it would cost $38 million more. And when she said there'd have to be furloughs, I for once would take her at her word, because we couldn't handle that. $38 million more personnel dollars, because we want to pay some people double pay. But you're out there pandering and leading the charge. Oh, I'm sticking up for the GovGuam, the hard-working GovGuam employees. So if you compartmentalize this thing, this is the way I come down on it. Was it a good idea? Was it ever a good idea, when there's a long period of time when we're in this kind of lockdown situation, to pay anybody double pay? No. Is it a good idea to have people stay home and get paid to stay home? No. People should go to work and get paid for working. If that isn't possible, then we need to minimize the expense of the whole thing. And those people who are staying home need to have something productive to do, and that's what Burns says they have. And people who go to their regular job shouldn't get double pay for it. It doesn't make, I can't imagine any private business operating that way. I can't imagine Payless saying, well, we got to close up here for a couple weeks. Or we got to cut back for a couple weeks, so half our employees are going to stay home and get paid, and everybody that comes into the store is going to get double pay? I don't think so. Okay, I'm going to come back to this for a minute, and then I'm going to move farther into GFT getting the burn. In the meantime, I want to talk to Keith for a moment to find out what he thinks about double pay for doing your job.
Hi, Bob. I find the whole concept of getting paid to sit home and do nothing jaw drop outrageous. When was this? I've been on Guam for a couple of years. When was this passed?
It's been in the personnel rules and regulations probably since, I'm guessing, the late 70s.
Okay. I'm of the belief that people should share the pain. When you've got 38,000 people in the private sector being laid off and scratching, as you indicated, to get by, and the fact that there are however many thousands of Guam employees out on their nice and beer getting paid full salary,
yes,
that's insanity.
It is indeed. It's expensive insanity, Keith.
And, I don't know. Given the makeup of the legislature, I doubt it would ever happen. But, when the weight falls and the government shortfall happens because of all these extra funding and the lack of income from both tax dollars and lack of tourism dollars, the government's just going to stick its hand out. And you can save a whole lot of money by changing that rule and putting a updating and changing the rule. And I think it'd be beneficial for one of the legislators to propose exactly that fiscally this is very irresponsible.
I agree, Keith.
Anyway, that was my 2 cents. Have a nice day.
Well, we need every 2 cents we can get. Thanks for calling, Keith. Yeah, it's time to revisit what I'm going to call Rule 8.40 something or other. I'm going to refer to it as Rule 8 in the personnel rules, and it's been around for a long, long time. It hasn't been that much of a problem in the past because it comes into play during typhoons. So the shutdown is not that long. Some people actually do have to go to work out in the middle of the typhoon when everybody else is at home trying to keep the water out of their house. So maybe then it wasn't such a problem. But in this situation, it really is. And, of course, I always have this nasty question, who's going to pay for it? Where's that $38 million going to come from? I don't. Okay, we got a short break coming up, and then I've got another Joe after that. Another Bob. I think this Bob is called before, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
He's not our Bob yet. You have to earn that.
Yes, it's not something everybody can do, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back after the break to another Bob.
Rärnim. Paraus utsia rerewesemwer COVID-19 ika coronavirus. Förriwisum omkosap nafeten. Kopepetsökkyn, koperiveriböts mekopovarnefits. Toa siriarravas purapakkökyra tsöydaan eisemmun. Esa porkotsu iketsuffegen. Esa porkapong, esa porfarropats ikekareffigen iri arravas. Kiitsi ponnautiunarium. Arapara petsökkyder iris. Anna faava sösö, om teiso, me ommogo kiobogo viennim. Paryn faitavin. Arapara rivöts, ko po kuku watta parravas. Toru bom muriro warto sirireri veirisin. Ko sa batta pavesom, potum meavum. Toru fitsi bom meia kiatta borayan. E porraus, aito seri atski office manuelu, Macquarie Resource Center, Mekko Station, Choice Broadcasting, Kriso Zapur.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
So here we are back on Tall Tales again, and I just wanted to mention before I talk with another Bob, I don't think people realize the situation that we're in. Let's just say we had a magic wand and we could end coronavirus tomorrow. We might face a future of 9,000 hotel rooms that will forever remain empty. And the task for hotel management is going to be how to salvage what's left of those buildings. And we may go back. You know, those who are talking about a sustainable Guam may get their wish, because we may go back to an agrarian society, because it's going to be very difficult to put together that $4 billion economy that we used to have based on tourism. Okay, I can't resist talking to another Bob. If he's another Bob, he's got to be pretty smart, pretty articulate, pretty good guy, right? Another Bob?
Yes, sir. I think I am.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. And I second the if you were a king for a day and could wish the coronavirus to go away, I wish that had happened. So my comment is about this double pay, and it's been eating at me for ever since I read that and listening to you talk about it. We have 1,200 cases, a 1, a 2, and 2 zeros, 1,200 COVID positive sailors on Navy base Guam, and not a single active duty service member, contractor, or DOD civilian that's helping these sailors are getting any extra pay, hazardous duty, double pay, or whatever.
Absolutely
Those
not.
people, those folks that haven't been able to work because of the social distancing and all those mandates have been put on telework, and it's incumbent on their supervisor to make sure that they actually have tasks that are completed at home and that are followed up on. And those that don't have the ability, which are very few, are then put on administrative leave because they either can't do the teleworking or their job doesn't facilitate teleworking from a different location. So to Gov Guam, I appreciate their, I guess, gratuitous, if you want to call it that, to the frontline workers to give them an incentive to actually work in those austere conditions, but they don't have any austere conditions. I think that's really about my biggest beef. Over to you, Bob.
Well, you and I are reading from the same sheet of music. I think great Bobs reach the similar conclusions, right, Bob?
Yes, I think we're there.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for calling in and giving me a little reinforcement there, Bob. It's always a pleasure to talk to another Bob.
Hooah!
Okay. See you next week, Bob. All right. So, yeah, what I'm talking about here is that we are really in a bad situation because, you know, it's as though you know, an example, let's say that we were a coal mining town and we discovered this morning that all the coal is gone and our whole economy is built on coal mines and there's no more coal. Well, for us, it's not coal, it's tourism, and our tourism business is gone. It's gone right now. and there's no sign that it's going to come back. So what we have to do is really prepare for a so-called rainy day so that we can keep our government operating at least on a minimal level. When we stumble along and go forward, it's not going to be like it used to be last year. Okay, I've got our Carl on the line. Good afternoon, our Carl.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, what you were talking about is something that's bothered me, and there's a lot of talk about fear of what happens if we start up too early. But what I very rarely hear much about is what happens if we start up too late.
Or never.
Yeah.
You know, if you drive around in the United States mainland, especially, you know, in flyover country, you come to these little places that at one time probably had a couple thousand people, and you see 3 or 4 substantial buildings. One was probably the church, one was probably the city hall, maybe the church, and they're all boarded up, and the only thing is there's a Casey's out on the edge of town and a few hard scrabble houses of the people that are left that you can't move out of there, and that's it. It just happens all the time because the economic engine that drove those little towns is gone, and that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, the last flu season, I think that was last year, over 80,000 Americans died from the flu, the worst in 4 decades. Every year, year in and year out, 20 to 60,000 Americans die from the flu. And that's a tragedy, you know, especially for the individual families. I mean, I can't even imagine. In 1918, anywhere from 50 to 100 million people died from the Spanish flu, the worst flu epidemic in history so far. And that's a tragedy. But one thing we managed to do is not destroy tens of millions of jobs that feed tens of millions of families. And we just kind of went ahead the best we could. Early on, you know, some overreaction and panic was understandable. We didn't know anything about the virus. We were getting some data from the Communist Chinese Party, which was some cause for concern. The computer models were projecting as many as over 2 million dead. You know, so there was really a cause for concern. And until we kind of wrapped ourselves around the nature of this illness, a little bit of overreaction is understandable. But now we know a lot more about it. We've seen the groups that this virus by far tends to attack.
Yeah, the point I want to make is this, though, Carl. Virus or no virus, we have a serious problem. And the serious problem is not going to go away when the virus goes away. That's why I said if we could wave a magic wand tomorrow and no more virus, we still might be seeing, we may have seen the best times that Guam will ever have. Because like in a coal mining town, there's no more coal. So it's up to our government to get rid of these ideas like double pay, cut back to a really austere operation to keep basic services going during a time of during really hard times. So I gotta go, Carl, for the big halftime show.
Okay, Bob. Well, thanks for letting me chime in a bit.
Okay.
Fox News. The Justice Department asking the federal court in Washington to drop the case against former National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn, who had pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI.
The move came on the same day the lead prosecutor in the case, Brandon Van Grack, alerted the court that he was withdrawing from the ongoing prosecution of Flynn. Van Grack has been under scrutiny because of recently revealed exculpatory evidence showing the FBI discussed their objectives, including getting Flynn to lie in order to prosecute him. Flynn's guilty plea for lying to the FBI was one of the signature cases brought by special counsel Robert Mueller.
President Trump flashing some anger the case was ever brought.
He was an innocent man. He is a great gentleman. He was targeted by the Obama administration, and he was targeted in order to try and take down a president. And what they've done is a disgrace, and I hope a big price is going to be paid.
The president also said the Washington Post and New York Times should return the Pulitzer Prizes they won for their coverage of the Russia investigation, calling it fake news. The House Intelligence Committee has released transcripts from interviews it conducted in secret during its investigation of Russian election meddling, one of them with the president's former attorney turned adversary.
In an interview with Michael Cohen by the House Intelligence Committee by Trey Gowdy, the former Republican congressman from South Carolina, and he says to Michael Cohen, do you have any information, evidence of collusion between then presidential candidate Donald Trump and the Russian government to either interfere or influence in the GOP primary in 2016 or the general election? And Michael Cohen says no.
Fox's Chad Pergram reports in another, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, said he'd seen no evidence of collusion. American is listed.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Brothers but branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
Horizon Properties can empathize with individual property owners during this trying time. The last thing you should worry about is collecting rent or sending a repairman to your property. With their web-hosted property management system, Horizon can reach out to tenants, vendors, and owners alike and maintain the current prohibition requirements. Let Horizon Properties take care of it all. Help flatten the curve by remaining safe at home. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792 or visit HorizonPropertiesGuam.com. Horizon Properties, always there for you.
A man has been struck and killed by a commercial jet on the runway at the airport in Austin, Texas. The crew of a Southwest Airlines jet alerting the tower just after they'd touched down. That audio from ATC.net. A few minutes later, a man's body was found near the runway. A spokesman for the airport says he wasn't supposed to be there. They don't yet have a name for him. The administration bracing for another potentially ugly number when the latest jobs report comes out later this morning.
April's employment report is expected to look dismal and will show that the coronavirus pandemic inflicted the largest one-month blow to the U.S. labor market on record. Economists surveyed by the Wall Street Journal predict that employers shed 22 million jobs and unemployment rose to 16.1%, producing the highest jobless rate since records began back in 1948. April's figures will underscore the labor market's sharp reversal since February, when the unemployment rate was at a half-century low of 3.5%, and the country notched a record 113 straight months of job creation. Hillary Barsky, Fox News.
Another state beginning to restart its economy today.
North Carolina moves to what is called a Phase 1 reopening today for a period that Governor Roy Cooper thinks will last just a couple of weeks.
A limited easing of restrictions that can give people safe opportunities to socialize and boost parts of our economy.
Cooper says the decision to allow the partial reopening is based on data, and if data suggests a resurgence of coronavirus, they will delay any Phase 2 reopening. But for now, retailers can open with decreased capacity, and houses of worship can hold services outdoors. Eben Brown, Fox News.
There are now 1.25 million confirmed coronavirus infections in the U.S. and 75,670 deaths in the country attributed to it. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
During this time of great uncertainty, Security Title is working to support our essential banks. We are working for the family who would have been homeless if their purchase was delayed, for the family's refinancing to lower mortgage payments, for the contractor who has fronted the cost to build a home, and the surveyors, appraisers, inspectors, and the realtors who cannot make a living without selling a house. With our office doors locked and our essential team members complying with all government protocols, in our own small way, Security Title continues to serve our community.
One of the easiest ways to prevent the spread of COVID-19 is to wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Let this message help you time it. Start soaping up now. If you're sick or caring for someone who is, wear a surgical mask or N95 respirator when you're around others. If you're not sick, wear a washable cloth face covering in case you're an asymptomatic carrier. Don't touch the front of the mask and always remove it from the back. When you cough or sneeze, use a tissue or your upper sleeve, not your hands. Choice Broadcasting reminds you to stay safe and stay clean. You can rinse now.
Subway is still serving the subs you love. Delicious subs made fresh and easy to get for takeout. And now with their family takeout special, get a free footlong when you buy two. Visit any of their convenient locations today. Subway, make it what you want.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Another great halftime show that we've all become so accustomed to, especially that cannon fire at the end. Even though the drill team, the cheerleaders, the marching bands can't take the field anymore, the Wuhan virus doesn't affect cannon.
That's true, sir. And we haven't been able to pay them either.
Yeah. So a couple of days ago, we had promos for that new show called The 19th Floor right after the big halftime show, but no more promos, huh, Real Joe Cruz?
Yeah, I think the operations, it's gone deep cover.
Yeah. I have an idea. Maybe we could get somebody from Nevada who lives close to Area 54.
Oh.
To give us some pointers about how to deal with the 19th floor.
That might be the avenue to take, sir.
Yeah. Let me see. Maybe our Carl can give us some ideas about how to deal with the 19th floor. Our Carl, we seem to have lost contact with the 19th floor. I know there's a lot of chicanery going on there. I know we've got Becky and Alice living in the suite up there, drawing huge amounts of money and incentive pay on top of that. But we can't get any more intel out of the 19th floor. Would you like to go in there as an undercover agent?
I wouldn't mind living there for a few days, especially if someone else was paying for it. That would be great.
Yeah, especially if you got paid for doing it yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially in the presidential suite.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So, our Carl, this is your second ride on the Ferris wheel. What can you tell us this time that you didn't tell us the last time?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up. I went to your old page from your senatorial years. I just kind of browsed around because, to me, the way you ran your office and your budget is a good model for how senators should handle the hard-earned public money. And one thing that really intrigued me was there you have a graphic showing the amount of savings per year, And it's really amazing. Again, if anyone's interested in looking at this, it's bobsoffice.org. It's really fascinating. For 2003, out of all your allotment, you saved $89,257.52, or almost 48% of your entire allotment. For for January 2003 through December 31st, 2003, you saved $182,157, or a little bit over 50% of your entire allotment. For January 2005 through December, you saved $180,538, or a little over 61% of your allotment. For, let me see, this is, for some reason you've carved out November 2006 savings. And then one final period, January 3rd, 2005 through November 30th, 2006, you saved $338,768, or a little over 60% of your allotment. And I remember something about you trying to make sure that these savings went to particular areas within the government that you thought really needed some financial help. And I think you met with some frustration. But, you know, this is the kind of thinking that we need to get into the legislature. And I think one thing that would encourage it is extreme transparency, having it be required to post how every dollar is spent, maybe on a monthly basis, or at the very least a quarterly basis. And maybe that might shame some senators into actually showing some restraint on how they spend the public's hard-earned money. But that may be asking for too much, you know, I don't know.
Well, especially when you got senators like Joe San Augustine who are, you know, who picked up the megaphone and they're in there, hey, we got to pay these guys double pay. What's another $38 million?
Yeah, and the problem with that way of thinking and allocating money, just kind of throwing money around, you know, I think of like the Mafia Don, you know, after having his restaurant meal, going and, you know, giving out fat tips to the waiters and the waitresses and the cashier, money for you and money for you and money for you, money for you. The problem is that that's why we have the hospital in the condition it's in. In an incremental way, they are actually spending money that should go toward a really well-functioning hospital and a well-functioning school system and school buildings and a well-functioning public safety system, including the dilapidated prison. So all this money that should be going to these big three are being squandered and thrown about to influence votes. And that's why we should be concerned. Every time we go to the hospital, when we see the condition, the decay that's going on, that's why.
And that's, Carl, and that's why when we see what Joe San Augustine is doing, this pandering to these poor folks that look like they're not going to get their double pay, that's why we need to call them out on it. And don't let them forget it, and don't forget it ourselves, and just put a stop to it at the ballot box. And it can be done. The Juan Pat 10 learned a really hard lesson after the great salary smash and grab in November of 2014. We just need to keep doing that. When senators pull a Joe San Augustine like this, they need to pay for it. And if it happens often enough, then we'll get the kind of senators that we really need.
Yeah, because the people paying for this kind of extravagant spending right now is the public, the taxpayers, the voters. Whenever we have family going to the hospital for life and death reasons, in some cases, when we look at the dilapidated condition and equipment that should be there but isn't, or isn't maintained or upgraded, that's why. And that could be my family member, your family member, or anyone listening. That could be any one of our family members or friends that we really care about. And the money that should go to these big three items is being used for voter influence, and it shouldn't happen.
I agree,
Anyway,
Carl.
Bob, I'd encourage anyone that wants to see how a senatorial office should be run, go to bobsoffice.org and scroll around and check out. You could still be running now, and people would still be voting for you all these years. You started early 2000. I'd still be voting for you if you were running, but you said you were going to go into office, you were going to run for a couple of times, and then you were going to go back to private life, and you did that. You kept your promise.
Self-imposed term limits, Carl. Well, thanks.
That's what the founders and the writers of the Constitution, the signers, envisioned.
That's exactly right. Well, thanks for calling back, Carl.
All right, Bob. Talk to you.
And it looks like we have an agent over at the PAC Star, although not on the 19th floor. So, Shepard, can you share any good intelligence with us today?
Good afternoon, Bob. I've never been accused of having too much intelligence, but I do have something to share. First of all, Prisoner 710 reporting as ordered. I have something sad to report. Today will be my last correspondence from the PAC Star Penitentiary. But not to worry, it's not because I'm going to the big bocce court in the sky. It's I've earned my release. I believe I'm gonna get out of here on Sunday, so I get to blow this popsicle stand.
Okay. Well,
that's good.
I think you've done your time, Shepard, and I wish you the best. You certainly deserve it. And
well, thanks for that. I wanted to on a serious note, you know, I can do 2 weeks standing on my head, and I have done weeks or months, you know, in GP mediums, you know, in different continents all over the globe. So this is no big deal, and I don't want to be make my situation too. I don't want to be melodramatic, because I know there are people who really are imprisoned, who really have their freedoms taken away. But on the subject, you know, of freedom, I think. You know, after having it take away, like other things in life, you don't appreciate what you have until you lose it, until it's taken away. But what's most important, I think, the takeaway from this is that the government can't take away my freedoms. The way I see it, my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is guaranteed to me in the Declaration of Independence. But not by Gov Guam, but by our Creator. You know, don't you know?
Yes.
That I have these rights, and then I believe this is the main difference at the heart of the matter. What separates any liberal from any conservative is a liberal believes their rights are given to them by the state, and then they make up new rights. For example, they say healthcare is a right. You know, bada bing, bada boom, it's a right. Well,
abortion is a right. Yeah.
Abortion is right. I don't see it that way, but I do see that you know, it comes, you know, from the Lord, and I wanted to end on that note, and I'm going to be happy to be breathing free air soon.
Well, I'm glad you called us today, and buongiorno, bon voyage, amigo.
Oh, yeah. Buongiorno, buongiorno. I'll tell you what, I'll end with a gift. I'll give you a gift. Real Joe, for your true international European listening audience, in Italiano, it's Il Giuseppe Realo. The real Joe, Realo Giuseppe, or they might say Pepe for Joe.
Yeah.
And you, of course, are Il Capo.
El Capo.
Grazie, grazie.
Prego, prego. Okay, you guys take it easy. Good show.
Okay. El Capo, I like it. Yeah. Okay, so where was I here? Talking about Joe San Augustine pandering to those poor people that are not going to get their double pay because of, I don't know who takes the credit for the blame here, but there is a lot of blame to go around here, and that is that when the governor announced an executive order that created the 10, 15, and 25% incentive pay, that should have been the time that she explained her interpretation of Rule 8, but she didn't. Nobody knew about their interpretation of Rule 8 until Wednesday when John Jr. Calvo, the new acting chief of staff, broke it on a talk show. Said, no, we're not going to be paying double pay, and came up with a brief explanation. So if the governor at the time she came along with her executive order that created the 10, 15, and 25% incentive pay had said, I am creating this incentive pay for people who have to work and who are going to be exposed to some of the danger created by the Wuhan virus. And I'm also going to tell you that Rule 8 in the personnel rules that we have used for short periods after typhoons will not be applicable this time because we are not putting people on administrative leave. Everyone is going to be in work status. Some will be working at their job sites. Others will be assigned to stay at home. That'll be their job. So there won't be any double pay. If she had said it at the time she did her executive order creating the 10, 15, and 25, there'd have been some grumbling. And the grumbling would have been, we always got this before for typhoons, et cetera, but it would have died down pretty quick. But because we've been in this lockdown status for so long, all of those folks who actually reported to the job sites were operating on the basis that they were going to get double pay. And they find out Wednesday they're not going to get double pay. It comes as a surprise and a shock to them. As I explained it, it's kind of like, kids being told on the 23rd of December, 25th of December, just another day, there's not going to be any Christmas. I know you've been looking forward to it since Halloween and the presents you're going to get, but there's not going to be a Christmas this time around. So that was really poor communication on the governor's part, and I've been trying to do with some FOIAs, trying to figure out when the government actually made this decision. I shouldn't say the government. The governor actually made this decision that they were going to interpret Rule 8 in such a manner that there wouldn't be any double pay. So I'll keep you informed on that. I've been probing this thing all along, and as I explained before, I couldn't understand why the governor vetoed Senator Nelson's Bill 326 because it gave her everything that she wanted. She said, I've enacted my incentive pays, 10, 15, and 25%, but I can't make it retroactive. So I want the legislature to allow me to pay it retroactive. So Senator Nelson introduced this bill. It's amended a couple of times. I wondered how the incentive pay would be applied with the double pay. Would it go to base salary or to the double salary? I did some FOIAs on that. And then the governor vetoes the bill, which is exactly what she asked for. But after I got to the bottom of this, I now understand why she vetoed it, because in subsection D, we have this language. Notwithstanding any provision of law, rule, or regulation or executive order, the provisions of the Department of Administration Rules and Regs 8.406 authorizing payment at double the regular rate of pay shall apply to the Wuhan virus public health emergency and shall be extended to employees eligible for Wuhan hazardous pay differential. A Wuhan virus pay differential shall be calculated and based on regular rate of the employee. So when the legislature put this into the bill, into Bill 326, they converted a rule into a statute. And having done that, then Burns's interpretation of Rule 8 is no longer there, and they would have had to have paid the double pay, and that's why she vetoed it. She didn't say anything about that in her veto message. So a GFT rep said, we were tricked. And they really were tricked, because the governor, it's not what the governor did, real Joe Cruz.
It's what she didn't do.
It's what she didn't do. She never made her intentions known up until Wednesday, 2 days ago, when we found out no double pay.
I'd like to know what she knew and when she knew it.
Yeah, you and Howard Baker. What did the governor know and when did she know it? Yeah. So I was pretty sneaky. So I don't see that there's any particular recourse against a public official who's not open and transparent. I don't see any judicial remedy there. I see a political remedy. But we're coming up on the 7th inning stretch, and after the 7th inning stretch, we're going to take a short trip to France. We've got Frenchie on the line, so stay tuned.
Bored at home? Now's the perfect time to get things done. Start that project you've always wanted, or finish one. At East West Rental Center, they know you've reached the end of the internet and need to get outside, and they're here to help. Get the right equipment: water blasters, wood chippers, mini backhoes, carpet cleaners, floor buffers, and much more. They're open Monday to Friday from 7 to 5, Saturday from 8 to noon, and closed on Sunday. Call East West Rental Center, 646-1463, or visit them in Upper Dumont.
If you've ever struggled for breath, you know what a scary experience it is. Whether you have asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or another respiratory illness, the right medical treatment makes all the difference. GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic has the latest technology and respiratory equipment, staffed by world-class pulmonologists. Make an appointment today with GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic and start breathing easier. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
Okay, so a quick trip from Wrigley Field in Chicago all the way to Paris. And our good friend Frenchie. Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon. Well, they have direct flights, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have direct flights to Paris from Guam, yeah. So, but anyway, I hear all the frustrations that people are having with the conundrum we're in, with lack of revenue and overspending, and it's kind of frustrating because, you know, it's like the ABC of economics, and few people get it, so they're still playing games with electorability or not. What I wanted to talk about today is that, you know, I don't know if you saw it today, but in Great Britain, there was the guy that was pushing all those catastrophic scenarios of millions of people dying and so on, which the CDC took to the bank and went to scare the president with it. And when he was told that, you know, we could lose 2 or 3 million people with this pandemic, he agreed to lock down the country, or most of it. And this guy actually had to resign because he was caught doing hanky-panky while he was supposed to be in quarantine with his mistress, who is a married woman and a mother of several children. And so not only did he infect her, but he also infected the family of his lover. So I see another example of do as I say and not do as I do, which is typical. We have several examples in the U.S. From the governor of Illinois with the billionaire Pritzker, who owns a part of the Hyatt company, and to the mayor of Chicago, who went to get a haircut like Lou because she needed one. We have all those hypocrites taking opportunities to reduce our rights. Well, they are flaunting everything they say we should do. But those numbers that were sensationalized by the media and led to the economy coming to a freeze, with millions of people lost their jobs across the globe. In the United States, I think it's more than 32 million people lost their jobs. And then here it's over 30,000 people, which is huge also for the size of our island, based on figures that didn't materialize and actually are less catastrophic than the 2016-2017 flu season, which killed a lot more people, which infected over 2.5 million people, and we didn't stop the economy then. Actually, the economy was booming. And here we have a terrible problem because we basically have only one industry with several little ones attached to it. And like you said, right now the mine has run out of coal. And we have, what are we going to do about restarting it? It's going to be a huge work to do that. So you have the economical impact, but one thing that very few people have mentioned is the impact on the health community as well. Because while we were concentrating and chasing viruses around, we decided that all elective, quote-unquote, surgery would not take place. So, like I was supposed to get a knee operation on May 1st, so that has been pushed back to I don't know when, because when the hospital will be able to take me in. But you have to think there in the U.S. we have had several thousands people that have died while waiting for organs transplant, may it be heart, kidney, liver, which are the three main transplants that hospitals do almost daily nowadays. People cannot get their transplants, so they die while they're waiting for transplants. That cannot happen because we have frozen all our healthcare system to deal with a pandemic that turns out not to be one except for New York and California. So what are the other 48 states doing, and the territories? Cancer patients, dialysis patients cannot get their treatment. You have a lot of other people with life-altering health issues that cannot get access to their primary care physicians. So it's totally past. It's totally occulted by the media, and I understand the frustration with the different pay raise, the people that don't have jobs and everything, and the patients that are running the asylum in Adelup. But we have a lot bigger issues that are coming on top of the already very difficult economical problems that we're going to have. My knee operation is at GRMC. I don't want to get into all the controversy with GRMC, GMH, and so on, but at least GRMC was able to bring in 2 or 3 very capable surgeons that started new availability on Guam of doing like orthopedic surgery and others. They also do cancer treatments and all kind of things. And suddenly this is not being able to work. What if I base my numbers on the bills I got from my first knee? That's about $45,000 right there. You multiply that by the number of people that get knee surgery in a week, you're talking about several $1 million over a period of a month that are not there. And the investors in that hospital are going to be left with having to play catch up if they can keep the surgeons that they had brought in to do those works, because those guys are going to say, well, I'm going to go someplace else. So that's another issue which I wanted to bring forth, because I think a lot of people right now, of course, they are concentrating on the bread and butter issues that they are facing day to day, but those are also issues that will come and haunt us once we go over the hump of the scare of that virus, which is not really based on reality. If you check what other things have happened, I mean, it's going to be tough. I was listening to Mr. Israel and also the what's the name of the owner of the beach bar and all those show places in town. They were saying that I mean they are bleeding cash right now, and they don't know how long they can hold. So then those are real issues, and even when they reopen, like this gentleman was saying, he said, we should reopen by country. Like Taiwan is quite safe. Granted, it's only the third largest group that comes to Guam, but they have very low level of infections, and they have kept their economy open. So maybe we can start getting some Taiwanese to come in, but it takes a couple of months between the time you give the green light and the time people do the booking and actually come over to spend some time here. Then you could have Koreans that are
Frenchie, I see it as being much grimmer than that. And I'll give another example. If you're traveling in the mainland, you're traveling on the freeway going somewhere, and there's an accident that holds up traffic. Well, the traffic driving into the accident bulks up the line really, really fast.
Yeah.
15 minutes after the crash, traffic is backed up 2 or 3 miles.
Or longer,
yeah. So the tow truck comes along and takes the wreck off the road, and the cops wave everybody through. Mm-hmm. It takes forever for the cars waiting in that line to get back up to 75 miles an hour.
I concur.
Yeah, and it's going to be the same way here. That once we're not horsing around with the virus, it's going to take a long, long time. It won't be like, okay, virus is over, tourists come back, and they'll all come stumbling in.
No, that's not going to happen. And then you have to also convince the airlines that they're going to have enough customers to come in.
Yeah, and the airlines are in the process of going broke. Rental cars.
The airlines don't want to fly planes that are half empty.
Right.
They want to fly full planes. If not, they're losing money. They're already bleeding left and right, so it's going to be tough. We might lose some airlines. They might decide, well, it's not worth to fly to Guam.
Well, this is going to be a really good time to be a bankruptcy lawyer, because as the airlines go bankrupt, it doesn't mean that the planes disappear or evaporate. The planes and all the equipment are there. It's just that the ownership will be gone, and new owners, probably with more capital, will come in and take the airlines over. But the basic facts won't change. That unless there are people who want to ride on the airplanes, it's not going to be a profitable business.
Yeah. No, I personally know a lot of people that travel a lot for business. The million-mile flyers. And some of them are thinking about if it's worth it to be on the planes all the time and putting their health at risk. So, this has scared a lot of people who usually are quite common sense into thinking, well, is this the lifestyle that I want to pursue? So I think vacations, if you're Japanese, and I wrote an article one day on that, our biggest competition for the Japanese here is not the Philippines or Bali or other, it's Okinawa, which is very clean, has very beautiful hotels, nice bays, similar weather than we have here, and they speak the language, and they don't lose in the change because the yen is quite weak. So we have a lot of hurdles in front of us, and I agree with the senator when he called. I am struck by the lack of urgency both in the legislature and in ADLUP into working on those issues. It's on the back burner. They're worrying about throwing a few people under the bus so the governor won't look too bad. And I think they're trying to push back the issue so that on the primaries they won't lose any seat. Like the primaries are right around the corner in August.
True enough, Francie.
So, yeah. So I'll let you take it from there. You have a very nice weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
Okay, Frenchie. Thanks for calling. And our Carl is back again. He wants to ride the third time, and we haven't heard from another Joe yet, have we? Has something happened to the phone lines between here and the 19th floor?
Possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, our Carl, third time on the Ferris wheel.
Hey, Bob, I feel like I've kind of cheated, so I'll try and keep this short. I just wanted to throw one other thought into the mix, and that is that there seems to be the perception that the government will just snap its fingers, businesses will be back in business, customers will start flowing, and we're good as new. The problem is, that, as you point out, that's not going to happen. But there's another complication that is going to enter into this. One of them is possible future wave of the coronavirus, complicating it a little more. But something I see that's even bigger on the horizon, and that is China. There are countries who are so angry about how China handled this that they are aggressively starting to pull out key parts of their supply chain out of China, one of them being Japan. Japan is actually offering to pay companies to pull out of China. America is aggressively starting to look at pulling key parts of their supply chain, pharmaceuticals being a big one, out of China. Now, what is going to complicate this is China's economy was not doing that great to begin with, although they've fudged a lot of the figures to try to make it look like they were doing very good, but they're not. And they're like a cornered animal that is really angry, and they're threatening countries who are daring to look into the origins of this virus. And I've heard rumblings of them threatening anyone who dares to pull key parts of their supply chain out of China. So you've got a cornered China that may react and further destabilize the economy, and who knows what happens when that happens. So we've got a lot of, as the Chinese say, may you live in interesting times, and boy, do we live in interesting times. We're going to have a lot of...
The Chinese see that as a curse. May you live in interesting times, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's going to work out that way if they react, because they are going to be fighting for survival. They have money spread out all over the world, and their economy, because of repercussions of what happened here, is going to be teetering, and they're going to be fighting for survival. And who knows what a cornered Chinese Communist Party will do. I can't even guess. It'll be interesting to watch, though. Thank you, Bob, for allowing me to go on for a third ride. I appreciate it.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed it, Carl. Okay, so we're breaking here. We're going to be heading down the home stretch, and I won't be able to climb on a horse at the Kentucky Derby, but I will ride in with our James down the home stretch.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his Smile Team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his Smile Team.
They make smiles happen.
Half a day. This is Michelle from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So the home stretch down the track here at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. And although the stands are empty, when I look at the paddock, who's leaning on the rail at the paddock but R. James. Good afternoon, R. James.
Good afternoon, Bob. Happy Friday afternoon to you.
Well, it's not a happy day for the real Joe Cruz and I because we got 2 days with no tall tales, so we're just enduring.
Well, yeah, that's right. You guys are going to have a dry weekend, but anyway, let me qualify what I'm about to say with the following. I've been around the world. I've been in some of the most beautiful places in the world, and I've been in some of the absolute worst H-holes that you could ever dream of in your worst nightmares. I've seen some of the best things in the world, and I've seen literally things that would curl your toenails and just make the toughest man cry. My wife is Chinese. I have extended family in China. I travel to China a couple of times a year to spend time with those extended family members. And I was in China in January for Chinese New Year when this all started to bubble up on the burner. And I can tell you right now, unequivocally, the Chinese knew they had a problem in early December. And they covered, this is starting to come out in the news, and some people have already known it for a long time that have got, as my grandfather used to say, a thimble full of common sense. They covered it up. They lied about it. The very first doctors who brought it to the attention of all of the other local physicians in Wuhan were jailed because they had the audacity to say, hey, we've got something new happening here and we have a problem. And this is going to get ugly and we need to do something about it. The Chinese government has put themselves in the position that they're in. And yes, they're threatening countries. Yes, they're rattling sabers. Yes, they're making big noise. And they're doing, in a lot of ways, they're learning from our misinformation technology society in the United States about what's been going on with our news and our media, and people just at the tip of a hat taking anything that somebody says as gospel, and they're trying to put the spin and the hyperbole on all of this because they know that it works. I mean, look at what's happened with our Congress. Look at what's happened with our politics, our FBI. Look at what they've tried to do to our duly elected president. And they know that people will buy it. So they're learning how to use our misinformation society against us. And
They may be successful with it. They may not. Only time will tell. But I would like to remind everyone that the reason why World War II started, the reason why the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and started World War II, is because we sanctioned them and we cut them off, and we put them very much in the same corner that our Carl just brought up, the things that he just brought up. They're a scared, cornered animal. And that's very, very true. But I'd also like to remember, for everyone to remember that you reap what you sow. The old saying, you made your bed, now you got to sleep in it. They have done this to themselves. And they had the choice and they had the option to not do that. They could have just come out and they could have voluntarily shut down their airports. They could have voluntarily said to the rest of the world, hey, we've got a problem here and we don't know how far this is going to go or how fast it's going to travel, but we're giving everybody the heads up. Okay? They could have done that, but they knew what that would do to them. And they didn't want to take a chance on that happening. So they took a cue from our misinformation society and they put the spin on it and they denied it and they tried to shut it down and they jailed people, and they didn't have to do that. So yes, they're a scared, cornered animal, and things may get ugly for them and things may escalate, but you can't just let any one particular country bully and try to get away with and do any and everything that they think they can get away with. Otherwise, we might all be speaking German and Japanese right now if we hadn't stopped the aggression of the Axis Pact during World War II. Well, we may have gone through the Cold War with Russia, and we may go through a Cold War, maybe possibly even worse, with China. But they have put themselves in this position. We didn't put them in this position. And they made a choice of a direction and a path, and that has compromised literally every continent on our planet and every country in our world. We cannot just sit back and let them continue to keep bullying and bullying and bullying, no matter what the cost is. It's not an option, because just as we're starting to see right now, what is worse, the disease or the cure, if you let them continue to do that. And by the way, for everyone out there listening that's not real familiar with China, they do have a 100-year plan. Okay, it is in their plan to dominate and take over the world, and they're working towards that just as quickly as they can. They want everyone in the world hooked on them. They want everyone to do business with them and nobody but them. They will inconvenience and disenfranchise themselves up to a certain point. I don't know, maybe the same analogy as a drug dealer. Get everybody hooked on cheap everything and then start threatening and making demands and, oh, well, if you don't do this, we're not going to give you your drugs. Well, we know it's your companies that are doing business in our country, and we know that these companies paid to build these facilities, but we're going to stop all your drugs and we're not going to export anything. We're not going to export masks. We're not going to export PPE, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're already seeing that. The minute you drop a dime on them, okay, and put them in a disenfranchised position, they're ready, willing to cut everybody else in the world off and keep everything that they think they need that will benefit them. And then they'll turn around and use misinformation and outright lies to try to cover it up, and then threaten the entire world. Oh, you will do business with us, or we're going to call your notes in. We're going to take your collateral. I don't know, maybe we need to petition, and maybe everyone in the planet needs to petition the World Court to take China to court and sue them for this damage that could have been averted. I don't know. That's my thought.
Okay, well, I'm not one for the World Court. I agree with just about everything you say. James, but I'm going to pass on the World Court. But I really appreciate
they're pretty worthless, but at least it would be somewhat symbolic and maybe a little bit legal. But yeah, you and I have pretty much the same thoughts on big courts, supreme world or otherwise.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for bringing your thoughts forward here today, James. And
food for thought for those who are not quite really still sure about what really went on over there.
Okay, thanks again. Okay, so we got about 5 more minutes to go. And let's see, do I have a caller here that I could squeeze in before the show's over? Giuseppe?
Yes, sir.
I do, huh?
We have about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, huh? Okay. Another Joe, you got about 4 minutes. I know you always have so much to say, so much to contribute. I don't know if you can squeeze it all into 4 minutes or not, but give it a shot.
Well, I'll try. I'll give it a shot there, Uncle Bob. I think the answer to our fears about China is to compete in the free market and to provide the things that they suggest we might be addicted to as an American made, and also to perpetuate our democracy by example. For example, here in Guam, energize, go out and as much as possible participate in our elections and the campaigning for the next few months until the election in November. But that's pretty much my message there. Bob, what do you think? Does that wrap it up?
I'll allow it. Another Joe.
Okay, thanks for your time, Bob.
Okay. So long. So long, another Joe. So let's see, I got about 4 minutes here till the end of the show. I really didn't finish GFT and the burn. There's so much to tell there. And the next item on the card is John Brown versus Lou. Lou in the 19th floor. I just want to make a couple of comments about the 19th floor, the hotel, Becky and Alice, and that whole thing. You know, I have the procurement law, and I've taken a quick run through the procurement law and matched it up with the things that have happened in the procurement of the 19th floor and the other parts of that hotel and the other 3 hotels. And what it looks like a law school examination. You know, the law school examination, you're given a set of facts, and your job is to find all of the issues that fact situation presents. I'll tell you, the whole procurement of those rooms is just chock full of issues. For instance, the procurement law says no advance payments. And our statute says that these emergency procurements are to be procured by basically, there's a long name for it, but it's the Director of Public Health. And if you watch that, I wonder if Linda DeNorsi is really careful when she walks by the bus, because things are not looking too good for Linda DeNorsi. One of the necessary things in the procurement record for the hotels is her signature, and her signature is not on the papers. Now, she said, I saw my electronic signature on the papers, but I didn't authorize that. I don't remember that. So if she didn't do it, it's a forgery, and it means that procurement record is not complete. But the governor has suggested what the company line is in a way out by saying, I believe that Linda could have forgotten that she authorized her electronic signature there, which is a not so clever way of saying, Linda, tell him you forgot. Well, we'll get back. We got so much on the 19th floor and on the whole double pay thing, not to mention Bovacqua and Taitano versus the people of Guam. So we got a full card for next week. Real Joe Cruz and I will tough it out through the weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. And 104.3 HD3.
Off the hook on Jack Callahan, Fox News. The Justice Department asking a federal judge in Washington